Every person you meet is a universe, a storm of memories, fears, and silent hopes wrapped in a single glance. Most will never show you what truly moves them. They smile when they ache, stay quiet when they burn, and act strong when they are falling apart inside. But if you learn to see beneath the surface, if you can listen not only with your ears, but with your awareness, you will begin to hear the language hidden beneath every word, gesture, and pause. That invisible rhythm is what the psychology of human behavior, understand people instantly, will teach you to read. You are listening on Book Sounds Better You, where every idea is designed to sharpen your perception and unlock your quiet mastery of human nature. Every word a person speaks is a reflection of what they fear or what they need. Every silence has a meaning, every reaction a reason. Yet we often rush to judge others without understanding the forces that guide them. We get caught in the noise of appearances, the polite smiles, the defensive tone, the withdrawn gestures, and miss the deeper truth beating quietly underneath. Human beings are not random, they are patterned. Like the tide or the turning of seasons, behavior follows laws that can be seen once you learn where to look. To understand people instantly is not about analyzing them. It's about awakening a deeper kind of awareness. It means recognizing that anger often hides pain, control hides insecurity, and arrogance hides doubt. Once you begin to see this, life changes. You stop being confused by people. You stop taking things personally. You start to see clearly, and that clarity brings peace. This book is your guide to that clarity. Through its pages, you will learn how to recognize the emotional codes behind behavior, the subtle signs that reveal when someone feels unsafe, unseen, or unloved. You will learn to read not just faces, but the energy beneath them, not just words, but the emotions between them. You will begin to understand what people are truly saying, even when they say nothing at all. But before you can understand others, you must face the most complex person of all, yourself. Your mind carries its own patterns, your reactions their own history. The more honestly you study them, the more empathy you gain for everyone else. You will see how your defenses mirror theirs, how your fears echo theirs, and how your silence speaks the same hidden language. The Psychology of Human Behavior, Understand People Instantly, is not a book of techniques. It is a mirror of awareness. Its purpose is not to teach manipulation, but to reveal perception, to help you see the humanity behind behavior, the truth behind masks, and the calm that comes from understanding rather than reacting. As you listen on Book Sounds Better You, let each chapter guide you toward a rare kind of power, the ability to read people without judgment, to sense emotion without absorbing it, and to walk through the world untangled by misunderstanding. Because when you truly understand the mind, you stop being deceived by appearances. You stop fighting shadows. You begin to see human beings as they are, fragile, beautiful, and endlessly revealing. And in that clarity, you find both wisdom and peace. Chapter 1. Every action hides a need. Every action a person takes, whether bold or hesitant, loud or quiet, hides a message. Beneath every word spoken, every silence held, every gesture repeated, lies an unseen need reaching out to be met. People are not random in what they do. Even the choices that seem irrational, the tempers that flare for no reason, the moods that shift without warning, they all follow the same hidden truth. Every behavior is an attempt to feel something that has not yet been felt. That need may be buried so deeply that even the person acting on it doesn't know it's there. Years of habit, fear, or conditioning often cover the real cause. The confident voice may hide insecurity. The cold glance may shield hurt. The stubborn argument may protect a frightened heart. Human behavior is never senseless. It is simply misunderstood. When you learn to see the feeling beneath the reaction, the chaos begins to make sense. You stop judging people for what they show and start listening for what they mean. Imagine looking at someone who explodes over a small mistake. You could label them angry, difficult, impossible. But if you pause and listen beyond the noise, you might hear the trembling truth beneath that anger. I feel unseen. I feel disrespected. I feel powerless. Once you recognize that, compassion quietly replaces frustration. The same happens when you meet someone who constantly seeks attention. They are not vain. They are invisible inside and trying, in every way they know, to be seen. And those who pull away, who seem cold or distant, are often the ones who once loved too deeply and were left broken for it. The mistake most people make is assuming behavior is the whole story. It never is. Behavior is a mask, and beneath that mask lives emotion. When you react only to the mask, conflict multiplies. But when you recognize the emotion behind it, peace begins. Ask yourself this simple question: what is this person trying to feel right now? That question alone changes everything. It moves you from reaction to reflection, from defensiveness to clarity. A story once told captures this beautifully. A weary king ruled over a kingdom filled with unrest. His people complained and disobeyed despite all his efforts. Furious, he asked his wise counselor, "Why do they not respect me? I give them laws, food, protection, everything." The counselor replied, "You have given them all but what they need most, to feel seen and valued." The next day, the king walked among his people, calling them by name, listening without interruption. Within months, the land grew peaceful, not because of stricter rules, but because hearts had been acknowledged. People change when their emotions feel safe. If you want to read people instantly, start listening to emotion before logic. Every word hides a need. Every reaction protects a fear. A colleague who over-explains might be craving reassurance. A friend who dominates every conversation might be terrified of fading into the background. A loved one who stays quiet during conflict might be guarding a heart that once shattered under rejection. The louder the behavior, the deeper the need it tries to hide. This understanding does not mean you must tolerate cruelty or surrender boundaries. It simply means you see clearly. You understand that pain always speaks first. When someone lies, they are protecting the part of themselves afraid of rejection. When they insult, they are projecting their own unhealed shame. When they manipulate, they are grasping for control in a life that once made them feel helpless. Seeing this frees you, not to excuse, but to remain centered. Their emotion no longer has to dictate yours. Try this practice. The next time you feel irritated by someone, take a quiet breath and ask 3 questions. What might they be afraid of? What do they want to feel? What need are they trying to meet? This single habit rewires your perception. Suddenly, conflict becomes information, and misunderstanding becomes empathy. You stop taking things personally because you finally see what's really happening. Not people attacking you, but pain expressing itself through them. A therapist once sat with a couple ready to end their marriage. The wife cried, "He never listens." The husband said, "She never appreciates me." Beneath their anger were 2 simple needs: to be heard and to be valued. When they realized they were mirrors of the same pain, everything softened. They didn't need new techniques, they needed new understanding. This is how emotional intelligence begins, with awareness. Every person you meet is communicating in the language of emotion, whether they know it or not. Learn to listen in that language. When someone speaks, hear their feeling first. When someone acts out, look past the behavior to the need beneath it. And when you feel yourself react, turn inward and ask what part of you is being touched. The one who understands does not need to control. Understanding is power, not the power to dominate, but to connect, to remain calm in the presence of chaos, to see through anger into fear and through pride into pain. The moment you begin to read life this way, people stop confusing you. You see their humanity clearly, and that clarity, that peace, is the beginning of mastery. Listen deeper, watch gently, respond slowly. Because once you understand that every action hides a need, you no longer fight people. You begin to heal them, simply by seeing what they could not express. And that is where true understanding begins. Chapter 2, The Mirror Effect, Why We See Ourselves in Others. Every person who crosses your path is more than just another face in the crowd. They are a mirror reflecting fragments of your inner world, the parts you celebrate, the parts you deny, and the parts you have yet to meet. Every smile you admire, every trait that irritates you, every reaction that stirs emotion within you, all of it is a reflection of you. The light you see in others is the light already alive within you. The shadows that disturb you are the ones you've refused to acknowledge in yourself. The truth about human behavior is that we do not merely observe others, we project ourselves onto them. Every perception you hold is colored by who you are inside. You don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. The judgments you form, the people who trigger you, the qualities you envy or dislike, They are not random. They are mirrors held up to your subconscious. When you understand this, you step into one of the deepest truths of psychology. What you recognize in others can only exist because it already lives within you. If you feel threatened by arrogance, perhaps you've buried your own pride. If someone's success provokes envy, maybe it's the echo of your untapped potential calling for expression. The world is not just around you, it is inside you, projected outward like light through glass. The mind is a projector, not a camera. It does not merely record reality, it shapes it. Two people can experience the exact same situation and walk away with two entirely different stories. One sees offense, the other sees opportunity. The difference lies not in the event, but in the lens through which it's perceived. Every interaction is filtered through the emotional residue of your past, your fears, hopes, and beliefs. That's why misunderstandings are so common. You think you're reacting to someone's behavior, but you're really reacting to what that behavior means to you. If someone interrupts you, you may feel disrespected if you value control, or relieved if you fear confrontation. The same act, two different meanings, both created by your internal world. Once you understand this, life becomes lighter. You stop taking things personally. You stop labeling others as villains or heroes and begin seeing them as mirrors reflecting your own state of consciousness. A story tells of a weary traveler who once entered a grand hall of mirrors inside a mountain temple. When he smiled, hundreds of smiling faces beamed back. When he frowned, hundreds of angry faces glared at him. Terrified, he ran outside shouting, "This place is full of monsters." An old monk sitting by the gate looked up and said softly, "My son, there are no monsters here, only your reflection." The world works exactly the same way. Whatever you project, you receive. Whatever energy you send into others is reflected back through the faces and actions of those you meet. Once you grasp this, you gain what can only be described as a superpower: emotional awareness. The next time someone irritates you, pause and ask yourself, what is this showing me about me? Perhaps their arrogance mirrors your hidden need to be right. Perhaps their confidence exposes the parts of you that doubt your worth. Perhaps their joy triggers the parts of you that have forgotten how to feel alive. The mirror never lies. Every emotional reaction is a revelation about yourself in disguise. But remember, the mirror reflects light as well as shadow. When you are moved by kindness, it is because your soul recognizes its own gentleness. When you admire someone's courage, it's because that strength is already seated within you. The admiration you feel is your higher self whispering, "This too is you." Every emotion, pleasant or painful, is feedback from the subconscious, a signal from the hidden world within. The people who enter your life are not accidents. They are teachers in disguise, each revealing a piece of your emotional puzzle. So how do you use this understanding in practice? Begin with observation. Watch your reactions in real time. Notice who unsettles you and why. When someone's silence feels like rejection, ask what belief within you is being activated. Is it the belief that you are not enough, not worthy, not loved? The pain you feel rarely comes from another's action. It comes from the meaning you assign to it. When you see this clearly, you stop blaming others and start healing yourself. That is emotional maturity, taking responsibility for your perception instead of surrendering it to projection. This awareness changes everything about how you connect. Conflicts lose their power because you no longer need to defend illusions. Criticism no longer breaks you because you understand it as a reflection of the critic's own insecurity, not a measure of your worth. You begin to speak calmly instead of defensively, to listen instead of judge. When you stop projecting your wounds, you begin to see people as they are, not as your pain paints them to be. A true story told by a psychologist illustrates this beautifully. A woman came to therapy insisting that everyone in her life was judgmental and cold. Week after week, she complained of being surrounded by harsh, critical people. Finally, the therapist asked her to pay attention to her thoughts for one single day. When she returned, her eyes were wide with realization. I spent the whole day silently judging others, their clothes, their choices, their words. The therapist smiled gently and said, "Then you've found your mirror. The judgment you see outside is the judgment you hold inside." Awareness changed her world instantly. She didn't need anyone else to change. She only needed to see clearly. Understanding the mirror effect does not mean blaming yourself for what others do. It means reclaiming your power to interpret consciously. You cannot control people's actions, but you can always control the meaning you give them. Once you understand that, emotional freedom begins. You stop depending on the approval, validation, or behavior of others for your peace. You realize peace is not something others give. It's something you choose through awareness. The more you practice this awareness, the more intuitive you become. You begin to sense the unspoken, the subtle changes in tone, the hesitation behind words, the truth hidden in silence. You feel whether someone's smile is real or a mask, whether their words come from fear or sincerity. You read people not to judge, but to understand. This is the psychology of projection in action, perception sharpened by empathy. So take a moment now and bring to mind someone who triggers you. Instead of asking, "Why are they like this?" ask, "What are they showing me about myself?" That single question can turn irritation into insight, conflict into growth. The more you look inward, the more clearly you will see outward. Because the truth is this: every person you meet is a mirror, not an enemy. They reflect both your wounds and your wisdom, the parts of you that still ache and the parts of you that are already whole. Learn from both. When you do, you stop being at war with the world and start being in conversation with it. And if this realization stirs something inside you, hold on to it. The world you see is not fixed. It bends and changes with your awareness. Each reflection you encounter is an invitation to evolve, to heal, to awaken. So watch carefully, listen deeply, and walk gently. Because every time you look into the mirror of another human being, you are, in truth, meeting yourself. Chapter 3. The Emotional Code. Reading feelings before words are spoken, before a single word leaves a person's mouth. Their emotions have already spoken volumes. The body always speaks first. Through the flicker of an eye, the shift of breath, the tightening of a hand, the hesitation between syllables. These subtle movements form a hidden language that few ever take the time to learn. But once you do, the world becomes astonishingly clear. The art of understanding people instantly begins not with intellect or analysis, but with sensitivity, the ability to read emotion not as chaos, but as the most precise and ancient language of the human soul. Emotions are not random storms. They are currents of energy, energy in motion, carrying messages from the subconscious mind. They reveal what logic hides, what pride disguises, and what words often distort. To those who listen closely, emotion is truth made visible. It reveals pain before it is confessed, desire before it is spoken, fear before it admits itself. Emotions are the vocabulary of the subconscious. When you learn to listen with presence instead of impatience, people will begin to tell you everything without ever saying a word. We believe we can conceal our feelings, but the body never lies. The body is a storyteller that cannot keep secrets. The pupils expand slightly when curiosity or attraction awakens. The lips tighten when someone feels attacked. Shoulders lift imperceptibly when fear approaches. A smile that lingers too long, a tone that rises by a single note, a breath that catches between words. These are not coincidences. They are emotional syllables. The ones who can read them no longer rely on words. They sense truth in silence. Most people, however, are emotionally blind because they are addicted to language. They listen to words but not to meaning. They hear tone but not tension. They focus on content and miss the current beneath it. Yet communication is overwhelmingly nonverbal, 80% emotion, 20% vocabulary. Words are often armor, constructed to protect the soft truths people cannot bear to reveal. Emotion is the reality behind that armor. Consider this. A person says, "I'm fine," while their gaze drops and their shoulders deflate. Their voice loses warmth, their hands fidget against one another. Every sign contradicts their statement, and yet we often take those words at face value. We nod politely, ignoring what our intuition already knows. But real understanding doesn't require confrontation. It requires attention. It's about listening differently, perceiving what is felt rather than what is said. There's an old story of a violin maker in a small mountain village who could tell when a visitor carried sadness in their heart before they uttered a word. When such a person entered his shop, he would quietly hand them a violin tuned to a softer tone. When asked how he knew, he smiled and said, "Their voice carried rain." He was not a psychologist. He was simply attuned. To read emotion is not to study. It is to feel with awareness. This is empathy without absorption, compassion without suffering. It means being so present that the emotions of others become visible, but not overwhelming. To practice this in daily life, slow down every interaction. Observe not only what people say, but how they say it. Notice their breathing, their eyes, their rhythm. When words and energy do not align, always trust the emotion. A person may say, "I'm not angry," but their clipped tone, rigid shoulders, and restless hands betray the truth. Emotional intelligence begins when you learn to trust your perception over people's performance. Logic explains behavior after the fact, but emotion creates it. Every decision, argument, or desire begins in feeling long before the mind justifies it. When you recognize the emotion driving behavior, you gain foresight. You begin to anticipate rather than react. Fear makes people defensive. Shame makes them withdraw. Pride resists correction. Love opens every door. There was once a leader who turned an entire company around using nothing more than emotional awareness. Instead of measuring only results, he started noticing how his team felt. When someone made repeated mistakes, he looked for fear, not laziness. When someone argued constantly, he looked for the need to be heard, not arrogance. By addressing emotion instead of judging behavior, productivity rose naturally. He didn't lead by pressure, he led by presence. The emotional code is not mystical, it is practical. Learn to read it, and the hidden world beneath human interaction unfolds like a map. When someone's shoulders tense, they are protecting themselves. When their feet point toward the exit, they want to leave. When they touch their neck or face, uncertainty or embarrassment is stirring. When their voice softens, they are beginning to trust. The more attuned you become, the more you realize these signals never stop speaking. They are a constant dialogue between body and soul. But there is one essential key. You cannot read in others what you deny in yourself. Emotional perception is blocked by emotional dishonesty. If you repress your anger, you will fail to see it in others. If you suppress your sadness, you will overlook it in their eyes. Your own avoidance becomes blindness. The clearer you become with your own feelings, the more precise your intuition becomes with others. Self-awareness sharpens empathy. Try this the next time you speak with someone. Instead of focusing on what they say, focus on what you feel as they speak. Notice your body's reaction. Does your chest tighten or soften? Does the air between you feel cold or warm, tense or safe? Your body is an emotional instrument constantly tuned to the energy of others. Trust its signals. Often your intuition knows the truth long before your rational mind catches up. In relationships, this awareness changes everything. You stop arguing with logic when the real issue is fear. You stop trying to fix people when what they crave is understanding. You realize that emotional connection is not built on clever words, but on attentive silence. The strongest people are not those who suppress their emotions, but those who can feel deeply without being consumed by them. Every human heart speaks in frequencies of emotion long before it finds the courage to form sentences. Learn to hear that. Listen for the pauses, the tremors, the breath between words. Feel the subtle energy behind the sound. The more you listen this way, the more transparent the world becomes. You will begin to sense authenticity and deception, joy and loneliness, trust and tension, all without a single explanation. And then ask yourself, how often do your own words match your feelings? What emotions hide behind your polite smiles, your calm tone, your rehearsed control? When you understand your own emotional code, you become fluent in everyone else's. Because in truth, emotions are universal. Different languages, same meaning. So take a moment now. Breathe. Reflect. Feel. When was the last time you truly listened to someone's heart instead of their words? The moment you begin to hear what is not said, you begin to understand people instantly. And if this realization opens something within you, share it with someone who longs to connect more deeply. Because understanding people does not begin with what they say. It begins with your willingness to listen to the silence between their words. Chapter 4. The Power of Perception. How Beliefs Shape Behavior. Every human being walks through life surrounded not by the world itself, but by a private interpretation of it, a personal universe built not from facts, but from beliefs. What you believe shapes what you perceive. What you perceive dictates how you behave. And together, these form an invisible cycle that governs every action, every decision, and every emotion you experience. Most people assume they live in reality, but in truth, they live in their version of it, a story continuously written by perception. This hidden architecture explains why two people can experience the same event and walk away with completely different memories. One feels attacked, the other feels challenged. One sees opportunity, the other sees threat. They do not live in the same psychological world because their filters, formed by childhood conditioning, cultural narratives, trauma, and repetition, color everything they see. To understand human behavior, you must begin here. People do not react to life itself. They react to what they believe about life. Perception, not truth, governs emotion. Beliefs are the unseen editors of experience. Think of two individuals sitting in the same room. One believes the world is dangerous. The other believes it is generous. When a stranger enters, the first tightens with suspicion, interpreting every movement as threat. The second smiles, seeing potential connection. The external world is identical. The difference is perception. Once you grasp this, you stop taking behavior personally. You realize that every reaction is an echo of belief, not a reflection of reality. The great illusion of conflict is the assumption that everyone sees the same thing. But reality is elastic. It bends under the weight of interpretation. Two siblings can grow up in the same home, share the same parents, eat the same meals, yet remember two different childhoods. Why? Because each filtered those experiences through a different lens of belief. If you wish to understand people instantly, ask not, what did they do? But what do they believe that makes this behavior make sense? That question is the key that unlocks empathy. There's an old story about three bricklayers. When asked what they were doing, the first replied, "I'm laying bricks." The second said, "I'm building a wall." The third smiled and said, "I'm constructing a cathedral." Same task, same tools, same sweat, but entirely different worlds. The task didn't define their experience. Their perception did. One saw labor, another saw progress, the last saw purpose. This is the quiet miracle of belief. It transforms the mundane into the meaningful, or the meaningful into misery. Perception is the invisible architect of destiny. Beliefs are not truths. They are habits of thought repeated so often that we mistake them for truth. As children, we absorb them without question. Beliefs about love, worth, success, and failure seep into our subconscious long before we can reason. Some empower us, others quietly imprison us. If you were taught that love must be earned, you will live your life chasing approval. If you were told vulnerability equals weakness, you'll armor your heart and call it strength. If you were raised to believe the world is unsafe, you'll interpret kindness as manipulation and caution as wisdom. The body obeys the mind, and the mind obeys belief. Every gesture, tone, and reaction follows this chain of command. Once you understand this, human behavior stops feeling random. It becomes legible, the coded expression of someone's internal narrative. When someone acts irrationally, the question isn't, what's wrong with them, but what belief are they protecting? People cling to beliefs even when those beliefs cause suffering because pain feels safer than uncertainty. A man convinced he's undeserving of success will unconsciously sabotage opportunities, not because he enjoys failure, but because success would violate his self-concept. Change threatens identity, and identity is the most sacred human possession. There's a story of a woman named Clara who grew up hearing her parents say, "Money is evil." As an adult, she worked tirelessly, but could never seem to hold on to her earnings. Each time she received a bonus, she found a way to lose it, through impulsive spending, bad investments, or unexpected accidents. Subconsciously, she was protecting her childhood belief. Prosperity would mean betraying her family's values. Only when she confronted that hidden perception did her reality shift. Once her belief changed, her behavior naturally followed. This principle governs everything. Belief precedes behavior. If you want to change action, you must first transform perception. If you wish to influence others ethically, speak not to their logic, but to their worldview. Because until someone's belief expands, their behavior cannot. You can apply this awareness in practical conversation. Listen carefully for belief statements. They often reveal themselves in absolutes. I always, I never, people are, the world is. When someone says, I never trust anyone, they're not describing reality. They're describing a wound. When someone says, people always take advantage of me, they are revealing a belief rooted in victimhood. These phrases are not complaints, they are windows into the subconscious. Do not argue with those beliefs, observe them. Facts rarely change them because beliefs are emotional, not logical. You cannot reason someone out of a story that once made them feel safe. The only way to shift perception is to create a new experience that makes the old belief impossible to sustain. That's why empathy and consistency are so powerful. They provide new evidence that the world can be different. And once perception expands, behavior follows effortlessly. Here lies one of the deepest truths of psychology. People act according to who they believe they are. Self-image is destiny. If you see yourself as powerless, you act with hesitation. If you believe you are capable, you take risks. The world outside reorganizes itself to mirror the image within. When you meet someone, you are not meeting their potential. You are meeting their self-concept. To help others grow, help them see themselves differently. Now, turn that mirror inward. What beliefs shape your perception? Which ones empower you, and which ones limit you? Do you see abundance or scarcity, possibility or threat, love or danger? The mind repeats its favorite stories until you challenge them. The moment you question them, you begin to rewrite them. And when the story changes, life follows. How you interpret the world determines how you live in it. The same event can either harden you or humble you, depending on the lens you wear. Mastering perception is not about denying reality. It's about choosing the filter through which you engage with it. So the next time you find yourself in conflict or confusion, pause and ask, what belief is shaping this moment? Whether in yourself or in others, that question will dissolve judgment and reveal truth. Because once you see the story, you stop mistaking it for reality. Human beings are not mysteries. They are mirrors of their beliefs. And when you speak to those beliefs with empathy instead of ego, you create connection instead of resistance. That is how you understand people instantly, not by analyzing their words, but by reading the quiet architecture of their minds. If this chapter opened your eyes, take a moment to reflect on the story you're living. Comment your greatest realization, and share this message with someone who struggles to understand why people act as they do. Because to change your world, you must first change the way you see it. The power of perception is not about illusion, it is about awakening. Once you see clearly, behavior, emotion, and destiny all begin to make sense. Chapter 5. The Mask We Wear. Understanding Hidden Selves. Every person you meet carries two versions of themselves, the one they show to the world and the one they keep quietly hidden within. The first smiles, performs, and adapts. The second trembles in silence, longing to be seen for who it truly is. Between these two selves lies the mask, the fragile armor we build to survive. We wear it not out of deceit, but out of fear. Fear of rejection, of ridicule, of not being enough in a world that rewards appearance more than authenticity. To understand people instantly, you must first understand this. Every mask has a reason. Behind every polished smile, every act of control, every burst of confidence, there is a story. And behind that story, a wound. People rarely hide because they want to deceive. They hide because once, when they showed their true face, it was not accepted. The world taught them that honesty is dangerous, so they learned to protect their truth behind performance. From childhood, we are trained in the art of hiding. We learn what earns approval and what brings pain. The child praised for being responsible becomes the caretaker, even when exhausted. The one punished for anger learns to suppress emotion and call it maturity. The one ignored discovers that pleasing others wins attention. Slowly, the authentic self fades behind the version that guarantees survival. What begins as adaptation becomes identity, and the mask hardens into what we call personality. But the problem is not that we wear masks, it is that we forget they are masks at all. When two people meet, it is rarely their real selves that connect. It is their defenses, their performances, their carefully built identities. They fall in love with each other's projections, the confident one, the kind one, the mysterious one. And when time strips away the illusion, when life tests the disguise, we say, "You changed," but no one really changed. They simply grew tired of pretending. To understand human behavior is to see through the mask without tearing it off, because beneath every defense is a truth that once felt unsafe to express. The loudest people often hide deep insecurity. The kindest often carry buried anger. The calmest may conceal exhaustion. When you begin to see through this lens, judgment fades. You no longer label people by what they show. You start to sense what they protect. There was once a young man named Elias, admired for his confidence. He spoke boldly, moved with assurance, and seemed untouchable. But at night, when the applause faded, he felt an emptiness he couldn't explain. One evening, standing before a mirror, he asked quietly, "Who am I when no one is watching?" The question echoed through him. His confidence, he realized, was stitched together from fear. Fear of being ordinary, fear of being unseen, fear of being unloved. In that silence, his real self began to stir, fragile but alive. To see others clearly, you must learn to read the contradictions, the moments when emotion and expression don't align. A person who laughs too quickly after pain is not healed, they're hiding. A person who showers others with praise may be starving for validation. A person who avoids eye contact is not distant, they're guarding their shame. These are not flaws, but survival patterns. Every incongruence is a clue. The laughter that's too loud, the calm that's too controlled, the strength that's too rehearsed. The louder the performance, the deeper the ache beneath it. When you see these signs, do not expose them. Understand them. The mask is not the enemy. It is proof of endurance. People build it because the world did not offer them safety. When you respond with empathy instead of suspicion, something miraculous happens. The mask begins to soften. You don't have to demand authenticity. Your understanding creates the safety that invites it. True connection begins the moment another person feels unjudged in your presence. You do not need to fix them or uncover their truth with questions. You only need to stay still, listen gently, and offer the silent message. You are safe here. In that energy, the mask starts to slip, and what lies beneath, raw, real, imperfect, begins to emerge. This insight changes everything, especially in relationships and leadership. A great leader doesn't manage behavior, they decode it. They understand that anger is protection, withdrawal is fear, and control is insecurity in disguise. A harsh employee may not be rude, they may be anxious. A quiet team member may not be lazy, they may fear disappointing others. When you address the fear beneath behavior instead of the behavior itself, people change not because they are forced to, but because they feel understood. There's an old Japanese saying, every person has three faces. One they show the world, one they show their loved ones, and one they never show anyone. The last one is the truest, but it only appears in the presence of deep safety. You cannot pull it forward by force. You can only invite it through acceptance. So the next time someone frustrates or confuses you, pause and ask, what are they protecting? That single question dissolves resentment. You stop reacting to the mask and start understanding the human behind it. Every defense hides a need. Every need, when met with gentleness, loses its grip. But remember, you wear a mask too. We all do. To truly see others, you must first see your own. Ask yourself, what part of me do I keep hidden to belong? Maybe you hide your pain under strength. Maybe you hide your intelligence behind modesty. Maybe you hide your passion under practicality. Whatever it is, honesty with yourself becomes the bridge to compassion for others. The moment you dare to remove your mask, even slightly, you create a ripple. Authenticity invites authenticity. When one person stands in truth, it gives others silent permission to do the same. Vulnerability spreads like light, illuminating the space between souls. And connection, real, lasting connection, is born not from perfection, but from shared imperfection. So when you meet someone new, look beyond the surface. Hear the hesitation behind their words, the story beneath their silence. Don't seek flawless people, seek real ones. Because once you learn to look through the masks, you'll begin to see souls. Each one longing to be understood. Each one doing their best to feel safe in a world that too often rewards pretense over truth. If this chapter touched something within you, take a quiet moment to ask yourself, what mask do I wear most often? What truth is it protecting? Write it down, name it, and then gently begin to let it go. Because every time one person removes a mask, the world becomes a little more honest, a little more human. And as you continue this journey of understanding, remember, the goal is not to expose people's masks, but to see them kindly, clearly, and without fear. For when you can see what is unseen, you no longer live in illusion, you live in truth. Chapter 6, The Mirror Effect, Why We See Ourselves in Others. Every person you meet, every friend, stranger, rival, or lover, is a mirror reflecting a part of you. Some mirrors comfort you, showing kindness, familiarity, and warmth. Others disturb you, reflecting fears, insecurities, or desires you would rather not face. Yet all of them serve the same purpose: to reveal you to yourself. The psychology of human behavior cannot be understood without this simple but profound truth. Other people do not trigger us. They activate what already lives within us. The world is not against you or for you. It is showing you who you are. The faces that cross your path are not coincidences. Each one is an invitation to greater self-awareness. The traits you admire and the flaws you condemn are both mirrors. When you judge someone for arrogance, selfishness, weakness, or pride, you are not simply describing them. You are describing the parts of yourself you have yet to accept. When someone provokes you, it is rarely their action that hurts. It is the emotion they awaken in you, the old, unhealed story that rises when they touch a nerve. If arrogance irritates you, look for the part of you that still craves approval. If weakness frustrates you, ask whether you've rejected your own need for support. If someone's confidence stirs envy, it is your own buried potential asking to be released. Every reaction is a message, a whisper from your subconscious, pointing you toward the next layer of healing. The root of this phenomenon lies in projection, the mind's unconscious defense mechanism that attributes its own qualities to others. The ego does this to protect itself. It is far easier to point outward than to look inward. So when you say, "He is selfish," you may actually be expressing your own neglected need to establish boundaries. When you say, "She is too proud," it might be your unspoken longing for recognition. Projection disguises self-awareness as judgment. There's an old story about a wise teacher who visited a small village known for endless quarrels. He asked a group of men why they fought so much. One answered, "Because everyone here is arrogant and disrespectful." The teacher smiled softly and said, "Tell me, my friend, what kind of man notices arrogance everywhere he goes?" Silence followed. The man lowered his eyes, realizing that what he condemned most in others was what he carried within himself. The teacher said, "The world is not showing you others, it is showing you yourself." That realization changes everything. You stop taking behavior personally. You begin to see life as feedback, not attack. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this showing me about myself?" Conflict transforms into clarity. Anger becomes information. Pain becomes insight. This is emotional intelligence at its highest form, turning irritation into awareness and resistance into understanding. You can practice this mirror awareness every day. When someone evokes a strong emotional reaction, whether love, frustration, admiration, or jealousy, pause. Do not rush to respond. Ask quietly, "What part of me is this touching? What belief, fear, or memory has been awakened?" This doesn't excuse anyone's bad behavior, but it returns your power to you. Because the moment you understand your emotional triggers, you can no longer be controlled by them. You become centered, self-aware, and free. But the mirror doesn't only reveal what you dislike, it also reflects your light, the hidden strengths you have forgotten. When you feel inspired by someone's courage, it is because that courage already lives within you. When you are moved by someone's wisdom, it is because your soul recognizes its own voice. When you admire another's peace, it is because your heart remembers what peace feels like. The mirror reflects both shadow and radiance. Those who awaken something beautiful within you are not exceptions. They are reminders of who you can become. Instead of idolizing those who inspire you, use their presence as evidence of your potential. What you recognize in others is what you are ready to awaken in yourself. In relationships, this understanding can transform everything. When two people are unconscious of the mirror effect, they blame. When they are conscious of it, they evolve. The statement, "You make me feel unseen," becomes, "I realize how much I crave to feel recognized." "You always criticize me," becomes, "I notice how easily I lose my own confidence." The focus shifts from accusation to self-awareness, and in that shift, love matures. This principle applies to leadership and family as well. A manager frustrated by unmotivated employees may be reflecting their own lack of inspiration. A parent irritated by a child's impatience might be confronting their own restlessness. A friend who judges another's indecision may be avoiding their own fear of making mistakes. Every relationship, professional, romantic, or familial, acts as a mirror of consciousness. The question is never, who is right, but rather, what truth is being revealed to me? And here lies one of the most liberating insights of all. When you heal your inner world, the outer world changes. Not because people suddenly become different, but because your perception does. The colleague who once felt unbearable now seems understandable. The partner who triggered you now evokes compassion. Toxic dynamics lose power because you no longer feed them with unconscious reactions. Life begins to feel less like a battlefield and more like a classroom, a place where every encounter exists to refine your awareness. Be gentle with yourself as you practice this. Self-awareness is not self-blame. Seeing your reflection clearly is not shame, it's freedom. The truth can sting, but it purifies. You begin to see that everyone is acting from their own level of consciousness, just as you are. Compassion grows naturally when you realize that we are all mirrors, reflecting, learning, and healing through one another. A story is told of an artist who painted faces every day. When asked how he managed to capture such emotion in his portraits, he said, "I don't paint faces, I paint mirrors. I look until I see myself in them." That is the secret to understanding people, seeing yourself in their joy, their fear, their contradictions. When you look deeply enough, the distance between you and them disappears. You realize that the same emotions that live in them live in you. So the next time someone angers or inspires you, pause, look inward, ask yourself, what have they awakened in me? Because the fastest way to understand others is to understand what they reflect about your own soul. Every relationship, every argument, every spark of connection is an invitation to return to yourself. And if this chapter resonates with you, reflect for a moment. Who recently triggered you and why? What might they have mirrored back about your own beliefs or desires? Write it down. Awareness begins where blame ends. Growth begins where reflection begins. Because when you learn to use life as a mirror, every person becomes a teacher, every conflict becomes a lesson, and every moment, even the painful ones, becomes a step toward deeper peace. Chapter 7. Emotional Triggers, the hidden buttons that control behavior. Inside every human being lies a set of invisible buttons, emotional triggers that, when pressed, can transform calm into chaos, patience into anger, love into fear. They are not signs of weakness, but fingerprints of memory, echoes from the past that have never been fully resolved. These triggers do not arise from the present moment. They are the past's unfinished stories, resurfacing to demand understanding. To truly understand human behavior, you must learn to recognize these hidden buttons, in yourself first, and then in others, because they shape reactions far more powerfully than reason ever will. An emotional trigger is not about now. It is yesterday, still asking to be seen. When someone criticizes you and you feel an explosion of rage, it isn't only about their words, it's about every time you were belittled or made to feel invisible. When your partner pulls away and panic floods your chest, it's not about this moment. It's the shadow of abandonment returning from long ago. Triggers are memory disguised as emotion, unhealed moments disguised as urgency. They are reminders that your heart has chapters it has not yet finished reading. The human mind was not built to understand. It was built to protect. The moment a present event resembles a past wound, the subconscious doesn't analyze, it reacts. That's why even intelligent, calm people can behave irrationally when triggered. The body remembers danger faster than the mind remembers safety. When the pattern of pain reappears, the nervous system leaps into defense before awareness can intervene. Understanding this changes everything. Emotional outbursts are not failures of character. They are evidence of survival. They are the body's way of saying, this feels like before. They are echoes, not flaws. There once was a man named Julian who shut down whenever anyone criticized him. Even the gentlest feedback felt like an attack. Through therapy, he uncovered the origin of his pattern. As a child, his father punished him harshly for every small mistake. His adult anger was not about the comment he heard today. It was the child within him still bracing for punishment. Once he recognized that connection, everything shifted. The trigger became his teacher. His self-awareness replaced his defensiveness. He no longer fought the pain. He listened to it. When you understand triggers, you stop taking behavior personally. you realize that most conflicts are not truly between two people. They are between two histories, two wounded inner children trying to feel safe in the same room. To recognize this is to reclaim your power. Because when you stay conscious during a trigger, you stop living on repeat. You stop letting old pain dictate new moments. The first step is recognition. You know you are triggered when your emotional response is far larger than the situation demands. Your chest tightens, your breath shortens, your heart races. You feel as though the moment has taken over your entire body. In truth, the past has entered the present. The key is not to suppress the feeling, but to name it. The act of naming transforms chaos into clarity. Say quietly to yourself, I feel rejected. I feel unseen. I feel powerless. Naming brings the unconscious into the light. Then ask gently, when did I first feel this? The answer may surprise you. It may lead not to the person in front of you, but to a memory buried decades ago. A parent's harsh tone, a moment of shame at school, a friendship that broke without explanation. The patterns you see in others also carry clues. The person who constantly defends themselves likely fears judgment. The one who withdraws when challenged may associate conflict with danger. The one who over-explains every action may have grown up needing to justify their worth. Understanding these patterns does not excuse behavior, but it allows compassion. Because you realize their reactions, like yours, are echoes too. You cannot calm a person's trigger by attacking their defense. You calm it by creating safety. There's a timeless story of two monks walking along a river. One monk silently carried resentment toward the other for years. That day, they came across a woman who needed help crossing. The older monk lifted her gently, carried her across, and continued walking. Hours later, the younger monk burst out, "You broke your vow by touching that woman." The elder smiled and said, "Brother, I set her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" That is the nature of triggers. We carry moments long after they are over. The body forgets to let go. The mind replays what should have ended. Healing begins when you finally set down what you have been carrying. In relationships, triggers test love more than any external challenge. When two people are unconscious of their triggers, they wound each other without realizing it. But when both are aware, every conflict becomes an opportunity for healing. Instead of accusing, "You always make me feel this way," awareness says, "This situation reminds me of when I once felt unseen." The focus shifts from blame to understanding, from defense to dialogue. Vulnerability replaces resistance, and love deepens. Practically, the path to mastery begins with a conscious pause. When emotion surges, resist the urge to react. Breathe deeply. Notice your body, the heat in your face, the pressure in your chest, the trembling in your voice. Tell yourself, this is not danger. This is data. The emotion itself is not the enemy. It is information. It is your body showing you where you still need to heal. Even 10 seconds of awareness can interrupt a lifetime of reaction, because in those 10 seconds, you shift from instinct to intention, from autopilot to presence. And with time, that gap widens until awareness replaces reactivity altogether. As your understanding grows, you begin to see triggers everywhere, not as threats, but as guides. The angry driver, the rude colleague, the defensive partner, each is protecting a wound you cannot see. When you respond with calm curiosity instead of judgment, you create safety. You break the chain of emotional contagion that passes pain from one person to another. That is the essence of emotional mastery. Not control, but compassion under fire. Reflect for a moment on your own life. What situations trigger you most deeply? Is it criticism, rejection, being ignored, or losing control? Each one points directly to a wound asking for closure. Instead of fearing your triggers, start thanking them. They are emotional maps leading you back to your peace. Because everyone carries triggers. The difference is not who has them, but who learns from them. Those who resist them repeat their pain. Those who understand them transcend it. When you stop letting triggers define you, you begin to use them as tools for awareness. You evolve from reacting to responding, from carrying the past to living in the present. If these words resonate with you, take a moment of reflection. What old emotion still rules your reactions today? Write it down, breathe through it, and honor its message. Because healing is not about forgetting what happened. It is about releasing the body's need to keep reliving it. And remember this truth: Triggers lose power in the light of awareness. Once you see them clearly, they no longer control you. They teach you, they refine you, they free you. When you master your triggers, you stop being a prisoner of your past and become the creator of your peace, calm, conscious, and unshakably aware. Chapter 8. The Power of Influence: How People Shape Our Minds Without Us Knowing. Every human being lives under the quiet spell of influence, an invisible field that shapes our thoughts, emotions, and even our sense of identity. We like to believe we are independent thinkers, guided purely by reason, but the truth is subtler and far more profound. Influence is not just persuasion or manipulation. It is energy in motion, a constant exchange between minds and moods. From the tone of a friend's voice to the confidence of a stranger, every encounter leaves a trace within us, and we within them. Human behavior is contagious. It spreads like emotional electricity. When someone yawns, we follow. When someone laughs genuinely, we feel lighter. When someone radiates tension, unease ripples through the room like invisible smoke. This is not mysticism, it is neuroscience. Our brains are wired for imitation through a system called mirror neurons, specialized cells that automatically copy the emotions and movements we observe. They make us empathic, but also impressionable. Through them, we unconsciously absorb the attitudes, beliefs, and habits of those we spend time with. That is why, without awareness, we often mistake absorbed behavior for authentic identity. How often have you heard someone say, "I don't even know who I am anymore"? That confusion arises when the self has become a collection of borrowed moods, fragments of everyone they've mirrored. A child raised in fear grows cautious. A teenager surrounded by ambition becomes driven. A partner constantly around negativity begins to expect disappointment. We reflect our environments until we pause long enough to ask, is this truly me? Most people never ask. They drift through life wearing the emotional colors of their surroundings, living secondhand lives painted by the energies of others. There is a story of a young apprentice who trained under a blacksmith. Day after day, he worked in the heat, his hands echoing the rhythm of his master's hammer. When the old blacksmith died, the apprentice continued his craft with the same calm precision. When asked how he learned such patience, he replied, "I didn't learn it, I caught it." That is the essence of influence. It is caught, not taught. To understand influence, you must learn to sense the emotional climate around you. Every group, a family, a team, a classroom, has an atmosphere, a shared frequency that shapes behavior. In negative environments, even good people become defensive. In calm, grounded spaces, even anxious hearts slow their rhythm. We are not ruled by logic. We are ruled by resonance. We tune ourselves to the energy we are most exposed to. Influence operates most powerfully when invisible. In love, two people unconsciously mirror each other's gestures, tone, and pace. Their nervous systems synchronize, creating emotional alignment. This is why being around someone consistently anxious can leave you drained, while time spent with someone peaceful can restore you completely. The nervous system adapts like water to its container. We do not just react to people, we become them, piece by piece. This truth carries both a warning and a gift. The warning: if you do not choose who influences you, the world will choose for you. The gift: if you surround yourself with integrity, peace, and courage, you will begin to embody those same qualities without effort. You do not rise to your goals, you fall to the level of your environment. Even the strongest mind bends to repeated exposure. Awareness is the only protection. Psychological studies confirm this. One consistently negative person can lower an entire team's morale within days. Yet a single emotionally intelligent leader can reverse that energy, not through force, but through presence. Calm is contagious. Empathy recalibrates the room. Energy moves faster than logic. That is why emotional stability is the foundation of leadership. Leadership in its truest form begins not with strategy, but with self-regulation. The most balanced nervous system leads the interaction. When you remain calm in chaos, others unconsciously synchronize with your steadiness. This is called emotional leadership, the ability to influence through regulation rather than reaction. Wisdom spreads faster than argument. Peace transforms faster than persuasion. You can begin to master this principle through what I call an influence audit. Look closely at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Their energy is shaping your future more than any decision you make alone. Ask yourself, do they expand my vision or confine it? Do they calm my nervous system or agitate it? Do they encourage authenticity or conformity? Your circle is your mirror. The energy you permit into your life becomes the behavior you unconsciously repeat. If you wish to grow, spend time with those who remind you of your potential, not your past. But awareness also carries responsibility. Just as others influence you, you influence others. You are an emotional transmitter. The tone you bring to a conversation, the patience you show to a stranger, the sincerity in your presence, these are all acts of silent influence. One kind gesture can alter a person's day. One moment of calm can ripple outward into countless lives. Influence is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet steadiness that anchors those around you. This is why it is said that a peaceful person changes more hearts than a persuasive one. Influence through peace is not control, it is coherence. The energy of understanding has a gravitational pull stronger than argument. When you hold space with calm awareness, others instinctively find equilibrium. This truth extends beyond individuals. It shapes societies. When a culture is built on fear, division spreads like wildfire. When it is rooted in empathy and vision, cooperation blossoms. Every movement in history began with a single consciousness strong enough to influence others through conviction, not coercion. Influence is the pulse of human evolution. But perhaps the most powerful influence of all comes from within. The voices that narrate your thoughts, the ones that say what you can or cannot do, are echoes of people who once influenced you. Parents, teachers, friends, lovers, their tones become internalized until they sound like your own. The mind is a library of influence. When you change what voices you listen to, even within yourself, you begin to rewrite your entire life. Influence is inevitable, but awareness makes it intentional. You cannot escape being influenced, but you can choose how and by whom. You can decide which energies you absorb and which you release. So take a moment now and reflect. Who influences you most deeply today? Whose opinions still shape your self-worth? Whose energy dictates your peace? Once you see clearly, you can choose differently. Because when you take back authorship of your emotional environment, you take back authorship of your life. Remember, you are both a mirror and a magnet. You reflect what surrounds you, and you attract what you project. Influence flows both ways. When you become intentional with it, you stop being a product of your environment and start becoming the environment itself, calm, grounded, and strong enough to lift others simply by being. If this chapter awakens something in you, share it with someone who needs to reclaim their own power of choice. And reflect on this truth. Understanding people begins not by analyzing their actions, but by recognizing the invisible energy that connects us all. Because when you master the power of influence, you don't just change how others affect you, you change the vibration of every room you enter. Chapter 9, The Language of Silence, What People Say Without Words. The most profound truths are not spoken. They live in pauses, in glances, in the still moments between sentences, in the invisible rhythm that flows beneath all communication. Silence is not emptiness. It is its own kind of language, pure, ancient, and precise. When you learn to listen to it, truly listen, you begin to understand people far beyond their words. Because beneath every conversation lies another dialogue, one made of presence, energy, and emotion, where truth hides quietly, waiting to be noticed. To understand human behavior instantly, you must become fluent in what is not said. Silence speaks the language of the soul, the voice of everything too fragile, too vulnerable, or too sacred to be spoken aloud. When someone pauses before answering, it might not be indifference. It might be the weight of honesty being measured against fear. When someone avoids your eyes, it might not be detachment. It might be emotional overwhelm. When someone talks endlessly, it's often not confidence. It's the fear of what silence might reveal. The irony of modern life is that we live surrounded by sound, yet starving for understanding. We speak quickly to fill the quiet, scroll endlessly to avoid reflection, and fill our days with noise to escape the stillness within. But silence, once befriended, becomes the most powerful tool for reading and connecting with others. There is a story of a young monk who once asked his teacher, "Master, what can silence teach me?" The teacher simply replied, "Everything that words cannot." For days, the students sat in quiet meditation, at first restless, then gradually awake to subtle details. The whisper of wind through bamboo, the rhythm of footsteps across the courtyard, the stillness in a stranger's eyes. He realized that silence was not the absence of communication, but the presence of awareness. Silence reveals truth because the body cannot fake stillness. When words stop, the unconscious begins to speak. A clenched jaw, a trembling breath, a gaze that lingers too long. These are sentences written in the body's hidden grammar. Great listeners understand this instinctively. They hear with their eyes, feel with their intuition, and let silence say what words cannot. To practice this kind of perception, begin to observe how people behave when the noise fades. Do they become restless or peaceful, withdrawn or open? How they sit in silence tells you how they sit with themselves. Those who can rest in quiet are usually grounded, self-accepting, and emotionally secure. Those who rush to fill the void often carry unresolved noise within. Their discomfort with silence mirrors their discomfort with truth. Silence has extraordinary power in moments of conflict. Most people, when confronted with anger, react with equal intensity. But silence disarms where argument cannot. It interrupts the cycle of escalation. When you stay quiet, calm, and steady, you signal something profound. I am not here to fight. I am here to understand. The absence of resistance dissolves aggression. Space enters the room, and in that space, something begins to heal. In relationships, silence is often the truest form of communication. The look across the table, the pause between words, the quiet hand that lingers or retreats, these moments speak entire paragraphs of emotion. The happiest couples are not those who talk endlessly, but those who can share quiet without discomfort. A fascinating study once observed couples in conversation. The researchers discovered that the most harmonious pairs didn't communicate with more words, they communicated with more pauses. Their silences weren't empty, they were full of connection. In those quiet spaces, trust breathed. They didn't need to fill every moment, they simply were. And in that mutual stillness, love deepened into presence. But silence can also become distorted. When used as avoidance or punishment, it ceases to connect and begins to control. The silent treatment is not silence, it is suppression, a way to withhold love, to wound through withdrawal. True silence is never manipulative. It is receptive. It invites truth to emerge rather than forcing it underground. The difference lies in intention. One disconnects, the other heals. In a world addicted to noise, the constant hum of conversation, media, and thought, cultivating both inner and outer silence is revolutionary. It allows you to perceive the layers of emotion beneath words. You start to sense the sadness behind a smile, the exhaustion behind ambition, the tenderness hidden beneath anger. To be silent is not to be passive, it is to be profoundly perceptive. Silence sharpens awareness the way still water sharpens reflection. Here is a practice. The next time you are in a conversation, allow space between responses. Don't rush to fill the gap. Simply observe. You will notice that silence acts as a mirror. People project their truth into it. In those seconds, facades fall away. When the performance ends, honesty begins. The quiet that follows a confession, the breath that trembles after an argument, that is where real communication happens. Silence also exists inside you. Beneath the mental noise, beneath the endless narration of thought, lies a still place. Your intuition, your inner compass. Most people never hear it because they never stop talking, even to themselves. But when you learn to pause, to breathe, to let your inner water settle, the truth becomes visible. The mind clears like a lake after a storm, and you begin to sense people not with analysis, but with empathy, instinctively, effortlessly, accurately. There's a saying among musicians, the most beautiful part of music is the silence between the notes. The same is true for human connection. What gives meaning to words is the space between them. The magic of conversation is not in what is said, but in the depth that surrounds it. When you master silence, you master perception. You begin to see beyond appearance, to hear what is not spoken, to understand emotion before it is expressed. You realize that silence is not absence, it is presence intensified. It is the language of souls meeting without words. So practice listening differently. When someone speaks, hear not just their voice, but their pauses, their breathing, their hesitation. Feel what they are trying not to say, because often the truth lives there, between words, in the delicate quiet that reveals everything. If this chapter resonated with you, take a few minutes today to practice silence, not as emptiness, but as presence. Sit beside someone you care for and let the quiet speak for you. You may be surprised by how much connection blooms when words disappear. Share this message with someone who has forgotten how to listen, and remember, silence is not the absence of communication. It is the depth where all real understanding begins. Chapter 10. Emotional Mirrors. Why people reflect what we feel. Every encounter is a mirror. Every reaction you receive is not just a response to who you are in that moment. It is a reflection of what you carry inside. Your fears, your confidence, your hidden wounds, and your quiet hopes, they are all projected outward, mirrored back through the eyes, tones, and behaviors of others. Most people think they are responding to someone else's actions, but in truth, they are reacting to their own reflections. The psychology of human behavior is not about controlling others. It is about understanding this fundamental law. The world is constantly showing you yourself. The way people treat you often reflects how you feel about yourself. If you walk into a room doubting your worth, others sense uncertainty. If you radiate calm, they relax. If you carry resentment, life seems filled with resistance. This is not magic. It is emotional resonance. Humans are designed to synchronize. Our nervous systems communicate beneath language, continuously mirroring the strongest emotional frequency in the room. That's why moods spread, relationships shift, and conflicts multiply so easily. We are emotional mirrors walking through one another's lives. The cause of most misunderstanding lies in unrecognized projection. People see in others what they refuse to face in themselves. The arrogant resent arrogance. The fearful accuse others of manipulation. The insecure interpret neutrality as rejection. Every harsh judgment we cast is a coded message from our own unhealed emotions, waiting for acknowledgement. To understand people instantly, observe what they react to most strongly. Their triggers reveal the landscapes of their inner world, what they hide, what they crave, and what they have not yet healed. There's a story of a traveler who wandered into a village made entirely of mirrors. As he walked, every reflection seemed to scowl, glare, or grin. Annoyed, he shouted, "Why do you all look at me with such hostility?" His voice echoed back 1,000 times. An old man approached and said gently, "They are not glaring, son. They are showing you your face. That is life itself. The world is not attacking you. It is reflecting you. The people you meet do not shape your reality as much as they reveal it." The ego resists this truth because it loves to blame, to see itself as a victim of others' moods, words, and choices. But once you grasp the principle of emotional mirroring, blame loses its power. Every encounter becomes information. Every reaction becomes feedback. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What is this teaching me about me?" When you view life this way, everything softens. Judgment transforms into curiosity. Conflict becomes communication. You begin to see that what triggers you is simply showing you what still asks for healing. A partner who withdraws might reflect your own fear of closeness. A friend who constantly interrupts might mirror the voice inside you that feels unheard. A boss who resists questions may be reflecting your own discomfort with uncertainty. Even kindness is a mirror. Generous people often project the love they most long to receive. The patient mirror peace they've fought to cultivate. Every dynamic, whether filled with harmony or tension, is a dance of mirrors, endlessly reflecting human needs, desires, and fears. To apply this awareness, start small. Notice your strongest emotional reactions. Who triggers you and who calms you? Both are mirrors. The one who triggers you exposes where emotion still controls you. The one who soothes you reminds you of the peace that already lives within. Every person you meet is offering feedback on your inner state. The question is whether you react or reflect. When you feel judged, misunderstood, or dismissed, pause. Breathe. Instead of defending, ask quietly, "What might this moment be showing me about myself?" The answer may be tender. It might reveal an unhealed need for approval, an old insecurity, or a forgotten strength. But when you meet that reflection with honesty instead of resistance, healing begins. Life stops feeling like a battlefield and starts feeling like a classroom, one where every person you meet is a teacher disguised as a challenge. There is also immense power in not mirroring negativity. Most people unconsciously match energy. If someone criticizes, they criticize back. If someone shuts down, they chase. If someone withdraws, they retaliate. But emotional mastery means breaking the mirror, refusing to echo chaos. When you respond from awareness instead of instinct, you stop being a reflection of others and become a source of calm. Science supports this. Mirror neurons, the same ones that allow empathy, also explain emotional contagion. That is why a single anxious person can spread tension through a group, but one centered individual can bring peace to the entire space. Awareness disrupts this automatic synchronization. You can feel anger without absorbing it, sense sorrow without drowning in it. Consciousness creates a boundary that says, I can see your emotion without becoming it. This understanding transforms every level of life. In leadership, a team reflects its leader's inner world. A calm, grounded leader creates psychological safety. An anxious, reactive leader breeds fear. In families, children mirror their parents' lack of emotional regulation, learning not from words, but from energy. A parent who stays patient under stress raises a child who feels secure amid uncertainty. The mirror ripples across generations. Emotional maturity, once embodied, becomes legacy. In everyday life, remember that your energy speaks louder than your voice. Before you utter a word, your emotional state has already announced itself. People respond not to what you say, but to what they feel in your presence. If you carry stillness, they feel safe. If you carry judgment, they close. The mirror works both ways. The energy you transmit is the reflection you receive. But not all mirrors expose wounds. Some reveal light. A stranger's kindness may remind you of your own compassion. A mentor's faith in you may reflect potential you had forgotten. Even admiration is a mirror. You can only recognize beauty that already exists within you. When you start seeing this, gratitude replaces envy. Every interaction becomes meaningful. Every reflection purposeful. Understanding emotional mirrors allows you to reclaim your inner authority. No one can make you feel unworthy, angry, or small without your permission. They can trigger, but they cannot define. The moment you realize this, you stop trying to control how others behave and start mastering how you interpret what they show you. Peace is found not by changing others, but by seeing yourself clearly through them. Take a moment now. Think of someone who challenges you deeply. Instead of labeling them as toxic or difficult, ask, what are they reflecting that I still resist? Is it impatience? Fear? A forgotten dream? A part of you that you've outgrown but haven't released? That inquiry alone transforms pain into awareness. The more you practice this, the lighter you become. The world stops feeling like a hall of judgment and starts feeling like a hall of mirrors, reflecting your evolution back to you. Every reflection, even the painful ones, is an opportunity for awakening. So when you next find yourself in conflict or admiration, pause and remember. What you see is not always about them, it's about you. If this truth resonates, share it with someone ready to stop repeating emotional patterns and start seeing their own reflection with compassion. Because the greatest wisdom in life is not found in changing others, but in finally seeing yourself clearly, through their eyes and through your own. Chapter 11, the hidden motives behind every action. What truly drives human behavior? Human beings act not because of what they think, but because of what they feel. Beneath every decision, every argument, achievement, or mistake lies a simple truth. Emotion moves us. Logic follows, like a shadow pretending to lead. We chase success not for the numbers in a bank account, but for the emotion of significance. We seek love not only for companionship, but for the feeling of being seen and understood. Even rebellion, ambition, or silence are emotional strategies, ways of trying to feel safe, valued, or in control of a world that rarely guarantees either. Once you understand the emotion beneath the action, human behavior stops being confusing. What once seemed irrational begins to make perfect sense. Because no one acts without reason. They act to restore balance, to meet an unmet need, to quiet an internal storm. The angry shout, the sudden withdrawal, the endless striving, all are unspoken messages that say, I need to feel okay again. Most people never realize that everything they do can be traced back to three primal emotional needs: safety, belonging, and importance. When one of these is threatened, behavior shifts instantly. The man who raises his voice may not be cruel. He may be terrified of losing control. The woman who grows distant may not be cold. She may be protecting her need for emotional safety. Even the boastful are not always confident. Arrogance is often just fear disguised as certainty. Misunderstanding happens when we focus on the behavior and ignore the motive. We react to symptoms instead of looking for the wound. Someone lashes out and we defend. Someone manipulates and we resist. But beneath both actions lies the same desire, to stop feeling powerless. When you pause and ask, what is this person trying to feel right now? The entire dynamic changes. You stop being reactive and start being perceptive. That question is the heartbeat of emotional intelligence, understanding pain without absorbing it. There's a timeless story about a teacher who once told her students, every person who hurts you is showing you where they hurt. A student asked, then what should I do when they hurt me? The teacher replied softly, see their pain, but do not become it. That is awareness in its purest form, seeing motive without taking it personally. Once you master that, emotional freedom begins. In psychology, this principle is called needs-based behavior. It teaches that all reactions, no matter how extreme, are attempts to restore emotional equilibrium. Some people do it consciously, by talking, reflecting, or apologizing. Others do it defensively, through control, avoidance, or aggression. But the intention is the same, to stop feeling exposed. You can witness this pattern everywhere. A coworker who constantly seeks attention isn't shallow. They are starved for recognition. A manager who controls every detail isn't cruel. They are terrified of losing structure. A friend who overshares isn't careless. They are trying desperately to feel close. When you learn to see beyond the behavior, judgment transforms into empathy. The world feels less hostile and more understandable. However, awareness is not permission. Understanding motive does not mean tolerating harm. Compassion must coexist with boundaries. True emotional intelligence is not about excusing behavior, but responding to it wisely. When you understand the why, you can decide how to comfort, how to confront, or how to walk away without resentment. Few people, however, understand their own motives. They think they act from logic, but logic merely decorates emotion. The mind constructs stories to justify what the heart already wants. A person might say, I work hard because I love what I do, but deep down they fear failure. Another insists, I don't need anyone, when what they truly fear is rejection. Behavior is the puppet, emotion is the hand that moves it. To read others accurately, listen for what I call emotional currency, what they are trying to earn or protect. Some seek admiration, others chase control, certainty, or peace. The one who speaks loudly may crave visibility. The one who avoids attention may crave safety. The one who pleases everyone may simply want to belong. We are all negotiating for feelings we believe will complete us. A powerful exercise is to pause the next time someone frustrates you and silently ask, what are they trying to feel? Respect, connection, stability. Once you know, you see through the surface. The loud become vulnerable, the cold become afraid, the difficult become wounded. That perspective turns anger into understanding and breaks the cycle of emotional reactivity. But this awareness must not stop at others. It must turn inward. Ask yourself, why do I do what I do? Why do you chase success, fear criticism, argue with those you love, or retreat when overwhelmed? Which emotion are you chasing, and which are you avoiding? Most of our self-sabotage arises from misunderstanding our own motives. We punish the symptom, the behavior, while ignoring the need underneath. When you meet the emotion instead of resisting it, transformation becomes effortless. You no longer hustle for love because you've learned to give it to yourself. You stop demanding validation because you recognize your worth without needing witnesses. That is emotional maturity, meeting your own needs internally so the world no longer controls your peace. A simple story illustrates this truth. Two men once built houses side by side. One built to impress others, the other built to protect his family. From the outside, the homes looked identical, but their meaning was worlds apart. One echoed emptiness, the other radiated warmth. The difference was not in the architecture, but in the motive. The same applies to life. What you do matters far less than why you do it. When you finally see through people's behavior to their emotions, you stop labeling them as difficult, arrogant, or weak. You see a child inside every adult, still trying to feel safe, loved, and enough. That vision does not make you blind to harm. It simply keeps your heart clear enough to choose consciously instead of react impulsively. So pause for a moment. Reflect on your own hidden motives. What emotion guides your choices? Recognition, control, freedom, belonging, peace. Write it down. Trace your behavior back to it. You'll find that once the emotion is met, the chaos quiets. Awareness is the first doorway to self-mastery. Because the truth about human behavior is not that we are irrational, but that we are emotional beings trying to make sense of our needs. Once you see this, you stop fighting people and start understanding the forces that move them. If this chapter resonates with you, share it with someone who reacts before they reflect. Because understanding the hidden motives behind behavior doesn't just make you wiser, it makes you free. Chapter 12. The Masks We Wear. How People Hide Their True Selves. Most people aren't pretending because they want to deceive you. They're pretending because they don't know how to stop. Beneath the surface of confidence, control, or calm, there's often something softer trembling, the longing to be accepted, the fear of being judged, the ache of being unseen. What looks like personality is often protection. What appears as strength is sometimes survival. From the moment we begin to understand the world, we start shaping versions of ourselves that feel safe to show. A child praised for being quiet learns to mute her voice. A boy mocked for his tears learns to bury his tenderness. Slowly, the true self becomes covered, not lost, but layered beneath years of adaptation. We become who we believe we must be to earn love, respect, or belonging. By the time we reach adulthood, many have forgotten what their real face looks like. The tragedy of modern life is not that people are disconnected, it's that they are disconnected from themselves. Conversations happen mask to mask, polite, composed, practiced. We say the right things, perform the right roles, smile the right smiles. Yet deep down, we crave the freedom to simply be. We want to be understood without pretending, to be loved without the performance. But the world often rewards perfection more than honesty, so we keep acting, praying that someone will see through the act and love what's real anyway. There's an old story about an actor who played his role so convincingly that he forgot who he was when the curtain closed. One night, he stood before the mirror and whispered, "Who am I when no one is watching?" The silence that answered him was unbearable. Most people spend their whole lives avoiding that silence, because to face it is to confront the emptiness that performance can never fill. The masks we wear come in endless forms, but their purpose is always the same: protection. The strong mask shields the fear of vulnerability. The nice mask hides the terror of rejection. The successful mask conceals a quiet fear of worthlessness. The independent mask guards against the pain of dependence. Once you understand this, judgment fades. You stop seeing arrogance or coldness as flaws and start recognizing the trembling humanity beneath them. To see through someone's mask, watch for contradictions, those subtle moments when the truth leaks through. The one who laughs too loudly may be covering sadness. The one who over-explains might be pleading for acceptance. The one who avoids eye contact may be terrified of being truly seen. Human truth doesn't live in perfection. It lives in the fractures between masks, in the tremor of a voice, the hesitation before a smile, the sigh between words. In relationships, masks often collide. One person hides behind control, the other behind withdrawal. Both crave closeness but fear exposure. The more each tries to protect their image, the less intimacy they experience. Real connection begins only when someone dares to remove the mask first. Vulnerability, when genuine, is contagious. When one person reveals their truth without shame, others instinctively relax and follow. There was a psychological experiment where pairs of strangers were asked to share their deepest secrets for 30 minutes. By the end, many felt closer to their partners than to people they'd known for years. Why? Because authenticity creates instant intimacy. When the mask falls, the human heart recognizes itself in another. It doesn't take years to connect. It takes truth. But removing the mask doesn't mean exposing every detail of your life to everyone. True authenticity isn't oversharing, it's alignment. It means that what you show on the outside matches what you value on the inside. It means you live with integrity even when it's uncomfortable. You still protect your boundaries, but you no longer perform to please. You stop editing yourself to earn acceptance. You live honestly, even if it costs approval. In the professional world, the mask of competence is one of the heaviest. Many work tirelessly, not for passion, but out of fear. Fear of being exposed as inadequate. Yet the most inspiring leaders are not the ones who pretend to know everything. They are the ones who dare to say, "I don't know." Their openness becomes strength, not weakness. Authenticity creates trust faster than perfection ever could. Psychologists call this the false self, the identity we construct to meet external expectations. It keeps us safe, but it also keeps us imprisoned. When the false self dominates for too long, the soul begins to ache. Depression, burnout, and anxiety often emerge when the distance between the mask and the truth becomes unbearable. Healing begins the moment we start closing that gap. To do this, begin with gentle self-inquiry. Ask yourself, which mask do I wear most often? The achiever, the caretaker, the loner? Then ask, what fear is this mask protecting? The moment you name it, you weaken its hold. Awareness breaks illusion. From there, you can begin removing the mask. Not all at once, but slowly in safe spaces with people who have earned your vulnerability. Bit by bit, the real self begins to return, like sunlight after years behind clouds. When you meet others, try to look beyond the performance. Instead of judging behavior, wonder what wound it's protecting. The angry person might be grieving. The distant person might be exhausted. The proud person might be aching for love. When you see that, compassion replaces frustration. You stop taking things personally and begin relating soul to soul instead of mask to mask. And remember, taking off the mask doesn't make you weaker. It makes you human. Authenticity doesn't always guarantee acceptance, but it always guarantees freedom. You no longer need to control how others perceive you because you've already accepted yourself. And once that happens, rejection loses its power. No one can use your vulnerability against you because you no longer fear being seen. So take a deep breath and ask yourself, who would I be if I stopped performing? What part of me have I hidden for too long? And what would it feel like to finally let that part breathe? Write it down. Reflect on it. Share it with someone who is tired of pretending, someone who deserves to remember who they are beneath the mask. Because behind every performance lies a truth that's waiting, quietly, patiently, to be loved back into the light. Chapter 13, The Power of First Impressions. How we read people instantly. The moment two human beings meet, something ancient awakens, an instinct older than language, faster than logic, deeper than thought. Before a single word is spoken, the nervous system has already decided, safe or unsafe, ally or threat, genuine or false. This is not reasoning, it is recognition. A glance, a tone, a small shift in posture, and within seconds, the mind forms its conclusion. What we call intuition is, in truth, the silent memory of thousands of years of evolution. You are not merely looking at a face, you are decoding a story. Every gesture, every pause, every subtle tilt of the head carries traces of experiences long-lived. And while you read them, they are reading you. Two worlds of emotion silently scan each other, seeking signs of trust or danger. Our ancestors depended on this ability to survive. Long before words existed, presence was the language of safety. They learned to read the intent behind eyes, the tension in a jaw, the dominance in a stance. Though the threats have changed, no longer predators in the wild, but pressures in modern society, the instinct remains. Today, when you walk into a meeting, a room, or a conversation, your brain performs the same ancient ritual. Am I safe here? But this rapid intuition, though powerful, is not perfect. It reveals as much about you as it does about the other person. A person who has been betrayed might see deceit where none exists. One who has known rejection might interpret neutrality as coldness. We do not see others as they are. We see them as filtered through the wounds we carry. That is why awareness is crucial. To read others clearly, you must first know what lens you are seeing through. When you meet someone and feel instant warmth, it often means they mirror something familiar. A tone, a rhythm, a kind of energy you recognize. Yet familiarity is not always truth. Many people are drawn to those who resemble their past wounds. That is why some chase charm that later turns into manipulation, or confidence that hides control. The body confuses comfort with chemistry. A psychologist once studied why some individuals repeatedly misjudged character in relationships. He found that the most charismatic personalities often create the strongest first impressions. Not because they are sincere, but because they know how to trigger emotional familiarity. For example, a narcissist can feel magnetic to someone raised to seek approval, not because of compatibility, but because the feeling of home is disguised as connection. To truly understand others, you must learn to sense beneath attraction, to feel the difference between resonance and repetition. Genuine connection calms your nervous system. Toxic familiarity excites it while draining your peace. That subtle distinction can save years of pain. Still, first impressions remain powerful. Long before your words arrive, your energy has spoken. The way you enter a room, the rhythm of your breath, the steadiness of your gaze, all broadcast silent messages. Confidence is not loudness, it is grounded stillness. Trustworthiness is not a smile, it is congruence, when your tone, expression, and emotion align. The human nervous system recognizes authenticity faster than the mind can analyze it. When someone's presence feels aligned, the body relaxes. When it feels off, the body tenses, even if the brain cannot explain why. To sharpen your perception, train yourself to notice micro-behaviors, fleeting cues that reveal emotional truth. A forced smile fades before the eyes join in. Shoulders drawn high signal anxiety. Eyes that dart away show avoidance or discomfort. These signals appear for a fraction of a second, but speak entire paragraphs about emotion. The body never lies, it only reveals what words try to conceal. Yet the goal is not judgment, it is understanding. Emotional intelligence means noticing these cues and asking quietly, what might this person be feeling right now? Is there tension, fear, shyness, or fatigue? Behavior is not good or bad, it is communication. Look for congruence. Do their words, tone, and body tell the same story? A person who says, "I'm fine," while their voice trembles and their hands tighten is not fine. Reading people means listening to what the body says when the mouth cannot. In leadership, this understanding becomes powerfully practical. People decide whether to trust you before you ever speak. A calm leader commands respect simply by presence, not by dominance, but by alignment. Steady posture conveys confidence. Warm but steady eye contact creates safety. Stillness signals strength. People follow energy before they follow words. Presence precedes persuasion. But the art of reading others begins with mastering your own presence. If you walk into a room full of anxiety, others will mirror it. If you carry peace, the room steadies. This is not mysticism, it is neuroscience. The human nervous system synchronizes with the most regulated energy in the environment. That means your calm is contagious, your confidence transfers, your stillness teaches. The moment you manage your inner world, you automatically shape your outer one. Before meeting anyone new, take a breath. Relax your shoulders. Remind yourself, I am safe. I am grounded. This small act aligns your nervous system, projecting authenticity and confidence without effort. Then as you interact, observe rather than analyze. Let your body feel before your mind concludes. The body often recognizes truth long before the intellect does. At the same time, remember that the first impression is only the opening chapter of a very complex book. The people who seem distant may simply be protecting themselves. The ones who appear arrogant may be disguising fear. The ones who seem indifferent may have learned silence as armor. Give space for the second impression. That's where truth begins to emerge. A nurse once said she could tell in seconds which of her emergency patients would survive, not from their injuries, but from their eyes. The ones who have decided to live, she said, carry a steadiness you can feel. That is the deepest form of reading people. Not judging their personality, but sensing their life force. You begin to perceive what they are choosing in that moment: fear or courage, defense or openness. To truly understand others, don't just look, feel. Sense their breathing, their rhythm, their emotional current. Every person emits a frequency of awareness, a subtle vibration of presence. The quieter your own mind becomes, the more clearly you perceive theirs. Take time to reflect. What impression do you leave on others? Does your presence reflect your truth or the armor you've built? You don't have to perform to be remembered. The strongest first impression is authenticity. If this chapter expanded your perception, share it with someone who often feels misunderstood. Because the art of reading people and of being understood begins not with judgment, but with awareness. Chapter 14, Emotional Triggers, the buttons that control behavior. There are moments when a single word, a glance, or a small delay can unleash a storm inside you, and you don't even know why. A friend's silence suddenly feels like rejection. A harmless comment feels like an attack. A simple disagreement feels like abandonment. It's not the present that's hurting you. It's the past echoing through the moment. These reactions are not random. They are emotional triggers, invisible buttons programmed by memory, pain, and unmet needs. Within every person lives a history of unhealed moments, stored not in logic, but in the nervous system. When something in the present resembles that old pain, the body reacts before the mind can intervene. A raised voice, a disapproving tone, a distracted expression, they don't just register as events, they awaken memories that never found closure. The mind believes it's responding to now, but the body remembers then. A child once criticized for speaking up may feel attacked when simply corrected. Someone who grew up feeling invisible may interpret a partner's distraction as rejection. The body is loyal to its past. It carries every wound like a silent script, waiting for the smallest resemblance to replay itself. Until we recognize this, we live in loops, mistaking memory for reality, reacting to ghosts that wear familiar faces. The cause of most conflict in human relationships is not malice, but unhealed pain. Two people rarely meet as they truly are. They meet as their histories. One speaks from a fear of being ignored, the other from a fear of being controlled, and both defend not against each other, but against the echoes of childhood. When you begin to see this clearly, judgment dissolves into compassion. You realize that behind most anger lies fear, behind defensiveness lies shame, and behind withdrawal lies exhaustion. No one is truly your enemy, only their unhealed experience speaking through them. There's a story of a monk and a soldier. The soldier insulted the monk repeatedly, trying to provoke him. The monk remained calm. Finally, the soldier shouted, "Do my words not hurt you?" The monk smiled gently and said, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to take it, who does it belong to?" The soldier stood in silence, realizing the power of awareness. The insult only lives when it is received. That is emotional mastery, refusing to accept what does not belong to you. Triggers lose their grip the moment awareness enters. Recognizing them doesn't mean erasing the emotion. It means witnessing it without becoming it. The next time your reaction feels too big for the moment, pause and ask, what story am I reliving right now? That question alone begins to separate past from present. The nervous system relaxes, reminded that this is not the same moment and that you are no longer the powerless child you once were. Triggers do not make you weak. They show you where your love still needs to go. Each reaction is an arrow pointing toward an unhealed corner of the self. The person who triggers you is not your problem. They are your mirror. They show you exactly where freedom waits to be reclaimed. When you learn to see your triggers as teachers, life itself becomes therapy. Every irritation becomes an opportunity for emotional liberation. In relationships, this understanding is vital. Without awareness, two people can wound each other endlessly without meaning to. A raised voice may remind one partner of childhood chaos. Silence may remind the other of neglect. Both feel unsafe, and neither knows why. They fight not over the present, but over ghosts. But when each learns to name their triggers, the pattern breaks. Communication transforms from "you hurt me" to "this part of me is hurting." That small shift from accusation to awareness turns conflict into connection. There was once a couple on the verge of divorce. Their fights were constant, every misunderstanding spiraling into pain. In therapy, they discovered that their arguments weren't about the dishes or the phone calls. They were about old wounds. The man felt dismissed when interrupted because, as a child, his opinions were never heard. The woman felt unseen when he withdrew because her father had been emotionally absent. Once they saw this truth, compassion replaced blame. The arguments stopped, not because their behavior changed first, but because their awareness did. In everyday life, people's triggers are everywhere. The coworker who takes feedback personally, the friend who disappears after a disagreement, the stranger who overreacts to a small mistake. These moments are not about you. They are the echoes of pain they haven't yet healed. When you encounter them, do not match their intensity. Meet it with calm understanding. Respond not to the noise, but to the need beneath it. Still, awareness must be paired with regulation. The mind may understand a trigger, but the body must feel safe to let it go. When triggered, the brain floods with adrenaline and cortisol, convincing you danger is real. That's when breathing becomes your greatest tool. Inhale slowly, feel your feet on the ground. Remind yourself, I am safe now. The body calms, the chemicals settle, and clarity returns. Emotional control is not suppression, it is regulation. It is the art of feeling fully without being ruled by what you feel. The paradox of triggers is that they contain both pain and power. The same wound that once made you reactive can, once healed, make you wise. Those who face their triggers deeply can hold space for other storms without being swept away. They become the calm in the chaos, living mirrors of peace in a world addicted to reaction. To practice this, write down 3 situations that consistently upset you. Instead of asking, who caused this? Ask, what emotion am I protecting? Fear, shame, loneliness? Then trace that emotion to its origin. Where did you first feel it? When you meet that memory with compassion rather than avoidance, healing begins. The charge lessens, and the next time the button is pressed, it no longer explodes. Understanding triggers also expands empathy. You begin to see that every difficult person is carrying pain they've never learned to name. Their anger may be unspoken fear. Their coldness may be grief still frozen in time. You stop expecting emotional perfection from those who have never known safety. And in doing so, you quietly become the safety they needed all along. Freedom begins when your triggers no longer control your choices. When you stop reacting out of fear and start responding with awareness, life changes. You stop trying to control others to feel safe. You stop chasing validation to feel worthy. You reclaim authorship of your emotions. The world no longer pulls your strings because you've stopped handing it the remote. So when you feel that familiar rush, the heat rising, the breath shortening, the mind racing, pause. Don't resist it. Observe it. Ask, what old story is trying to repeat itself? That single act of awareness breaks the chain of unconscious repetition. You are no longer the character in the story. You are the author, rewriting the ending. Remember, triggers aren't proof that you're broken. They're proof that you're alive and that your body remembers what your mind has tried to forget. They are not curses. They are invitations. Each one points toward a part of you still waiting to be loved. If this chapter stirred something within you, take it as a sign to slow down and listen. The next time you are triggered, don't run from it. Stay. Breathe. Let the feeling speak and then choose differently. That is how the cycle ends. Not by changing others, but by staying conscious when your past tries to speak through you. Share this message with someone who feels trapped by their emotions and reflect on which trigger you're ready to transform into strength. Because understanding human behavior begins with understanding yourself, and freedom begins the moment you no longer mistake your pain for your personality. Chapter 15, The Mirror of the Soul, Becoming the Master of Human Understanding. At the end of every search, every study, every attempt to decode what drives people, one revelation remains. The person you will understand most deeply is yourself. Because every face you read, every emotion you sense, every conflict you encounter is filtered through the mirror of your own inner world. Your perception of others is not separate from you. It is you, reflected back in countless forms. When this truth settles in, something shifts inside. You stop moving through life as a reactor and begin walking as a witness. You stop trying to control and begin to connect. The psychology of human behavior, at its highest level, is not about analyzing others. It is about awakening the ability to see your own reflection in everything. What you notice in others reveals what lives in you. What you judge outside is what you have not yet healed inside. Mastery, then, is not about reading people perfectly. It is about remaining peaceful no matter what you read. The deeper you go into human understanding, the more you realize that every person is both wounded and divine, fragile and resilient, terrified yet yearning for love. Every behavior, however irrational or defensive, is a plea, a silent request to feel safe, seen, or significant. Behind anger lies the fear of being powerless. Behind arrogance lies the fear of being small. Behind indifference hides the fear of being hurt. When you begin to see the hidden fear beneath the surface, judgment softens. You no longer ask, what is wrong with them? But instead, what pain are they carrying that I cannot yet see? That question transforms how you live. There is a story of a student who once asked his teacher, "How will I know when I have truly understood people?" The teacher smiled and said, "When you stop needing them to be different." That is the moment understanding becomes compassion. When you no longer seek to fix or change anyone, because you finally see that every person is doing the best they can with the level of awareness they have. True understanding is not intellectual. It is emotional presence, the ability to remain grounded when others are lost in their storms. It is listening when someone shouts, because you sense the pain beneath their volume. It is staying calm in conflict, because you recognize fear, not threat. It is choosing awareness over argument, empathy over ego. The one who listens to understand is always freer than the one who speaks to win. As awareness expands, you begin to see patterns everywhere. The coworker who constantly seeks validation mirrors your own need to be acknowledged. The friend who avoids vulnerability reflects your past fear of exposure. The stranger who irritates you reveals the part of yourself you've not yet accepted. Life becomes a hall of mirrors, each reflection inviting you toward healing. This is how the universe teaches, through repetition, through reflection, through love disguised as challenge. To walk the path of mastery, cultivate 3 forms of awareness. First, self-awareness. Know your triggers, desires, and blind spots. Without this, every encounter becomes projection. Second, situational awareness. Feel the energy in a moment, the emotion beneath words, the intention beneath action. Third, compassionate awareness. See the wounded child behind every adult mask. Together, these 3 create clarity, the kind of perception that sees not just behavior, but humanity. And yet there will always be darkness in the world, manipulation, deceit, cruelty. Should you still seek to understand it? The answer is yes, but with discernment. Understanding does not mean tolerating harm. It means recognizing motives clearly so you can respond wisely. The one who sees without reacting cannot be deceived. When your peace becomes unshakable, the chaos of others no longer controls you. True power lies not in domination, but in stability. The most powerful people are not the loudest nor the most admired. They are the ones who remain steady when the world trembles. They see through anger into fear, through cruelty into pain, through arrogance into longing. Their compassion is not naive, it is rooted in awareness. They know that every lie is born from fear, every mask from the terror of rejection, every act of harm from the illusion of separation. Imagine walking down a crowded street and seeing not strangers, but stories. The man rushing past carries grief. The woman staring at her phone hides loneliness. The child crying for attention embodies every human heart that simply wants to be seen. When you begin to see people this way, compassion stops being an effort and becomes instinct. The world softens. You are no longer surviving among others. You are walking among mirrors of yourself. Apply this understanding in your daily life. The next time someone frustrates you, pause and ask, what part of me is reacting? The moment you name it, the reaction begins to dissolve. The next time someone opens their heart to you, listen not to reply, but to feel. Beneath every story is an unspoken emotion waiting to be recognized. That is how you touch the soul beneath behavior. The world does not need more judgment, it needs presence. People who can hold space for truth without fear. That is the highest form of emotional intelligence, holding calm awareness in the middle of human chaos. And as you grow in this awareness, you discover something unexpected, the end of loneliness. Because loneliness is not the absence of people, it is the absence of understanding. When you begin to truly see others, you realize everyone is searching for the same things you are: peace, love, belonging, and freedom. The walls between you and them dissolve. You begin to live not from separation, but from connection. The greatest power you can ever hold is calm understanding. When others shout, you remain centered. When others withdraw, you stay open. When others deceive, you stay discerning but kind. This is not weakness, it is emotional evolution. You are no longer swept by the tides of reactivity. You have become the observer of the ocean itself. Perhaps the most profound realization of all is that the person who challenged you most, the one whose behavior you could never understand, was your greatest teacher. They came to reflect the unhealed parts of you, to push you toward awareness, to help you grow into clarity. When you see this, gratitude replaces resentment. Every heartbreak becomes sacred. Every misunderstanding becomes a mirror that sculpted your wisdom. So now, stand where you are, not as someone trying to decode others, but as someone who sees. You are no longer lost in the maze of behavior. You are awake in the landscape of consciousness. Every person you meet is showing you a part of yourself. Every emotion is a message. Every silence is an invitation. Understanding, in the end, is not the destination. It is the beginning of peace. If these words resonate with your soul, take a deep breath and absorb the truth they carry. You do not need to control others to understand them. You only need to see them, quietly, clearly, without projection. Because understanding is love in its most mature form. So walk gently through the world. Look at every face as a mirror. Treat every conflict as a lesson. Honor every silence as a chance to listen deeper. The more you understand yourself, the clearer the world becomes. And if this journey has spoken to you, share it with someone who still feels lost in the noise of misunderstanding. Tell them they are not alone. Leave a comment, reflect on what part of this journey changed your perception most, and stay for what comes next. Because this is not an ending. It is an awakening. Life does not transform overnight, but every time you pause to listen deeply, to yourself or to another, you plant a seed of awareness that changes everything. And when you need a quiet reminder of who you are and what you're becoming, return here. In this space, there will always be someone walking beside you, reminding you that you are growing, evolving, and walking the right path. Keep building your inner strength. Keep deepening your understanding. The book may end here, but your awareness has only just begun. Closing reflection. Understanding as love in action. If you've made it to this moment, if you've listened to every chapter, every pause, every breath of this journey, then you've done something extraordinary. You haven't just heard the psychology of human behavior, understand people instantly. You've felt it. You've walked through the quiet corridors of the human mind, not as an observer, but as a participant. You've seen yourself reflected in every story, every emotion, every face described along the way. And that means one thing. You are already becoming the kind of person who doesn't just live, but understands life. Understanding people is not about memorizing patterns or decoding signals. It's about opening your heart wide enough to see the truth behind the masks. It's about learning to listen, not only to words, but to silence, to sense the emotions that hide behind eyes, the fears that disguise themselves as anger, the love that shows up in the smallest acts of care. And most importantly, it's about learning to recognize yourself in all of it. Because to truly understand others, you must first have the courage to understand your own soul. If you take only one thing from this journey, let it be this. The world will never stop reflecting you. Every person you meet, every challenge you face, every reaction that stirs within you, they are all teachers. When you feel triggered, look inward. When you feel inspired, look deeper. Life is not happening to you, it's happening through you. And now, as you step beyond this book, remember that awareness without action changes nothing. Let understanding become your practice. The next time you speak with someone, pause. Look into their eyes. Feel their energy before their words. Respond with presence instead of impulse. Choose calm instead of control. Choose empathy instead of judgment. This is where transformation begins. Not in grand gestures, but in quiet moments of awareness. Maybe you'll never know how many lives your calm will influence, how many hearts your patience will heal, or how many people will feel seen because you took the time to understand. But that is the silent power of emotional intelligence. It ripples outward. One kind word, one genuine pause, one conscious breath, they travel further than you can imagine. Here, on Book Sounds Better You, that's the mission. To help you build not just knowledge, but wisdom. Not just awareness, but depth. To remind you that becoming a better listener, a gentler observer, a more compassionate human being is not just an act of kindness to others, it's an act of liberation for yourself. So thank you truly for being here, for giving your time, your mind, and your heart to this experience. Thank you for choosing growth when it would have been easier to stay comfortable. Thank you for showing up for yourself and for the world that will be brighter because you did. As you go forward, may you see every face as a mirror. May you speak less to be heard and more to connect. May you listen with empathy, love with patience, and walk through life with quiet understanding. Because when you understand people, you no longer fight the world. you begin to harmonize with it. This is the psychology of human behavior. Understand people instantly. And you've just finished not only a book, but a beginning. From all of us at Book Sounds Better You, we thank you from the heart for walking this path with us. May your awareness stay sharp, your heart stay open, and your peace stay unshakable. Until the next journey, stay kind, stay present, and remember, understanding is love in action.